Imagine a god who cheats on his wife, a god who lies to his own children, a being who, driven by nothing but pure, jagged jealousy, destroys everything he touches. Now, don't imagine him as some minor demon hiding in the shadows. Imagine him as the Lord of the heavens, the absolute ruler of all creation. That isn't a villain from a dark fantasy novel. That is Zeus, king of the Olympians, the single most powerful entity in the Greek universe. And here's the kicker. The ancient Greeks didn't worship him despite these flaws. They worshipped him because of them. This is what sets Greek mythology apart from nearly every other religious tradition. The gods of Greece are not perfect. They are not all-knowing, all-loving architects of some grand moral design. They are powerful, yes, but also petty, jealous, lustful, and cruel. They play favorites, hold grudges for centuries, and wage wars over wounded pride. In essence, they are deeply, recognizably human. What makes these gods even more fascinating is that they did not create the world, they emerged from it. They are woven into the same wild, tangled story that includes us, the mountains, and the seas. In Greek cosmology, the universe wasn't spoken into existence by a divine will, but unfolded organically, born from something ancient and formless, something the Greeks called chaos. And that is exactly where our story begins. In the beginning, there was nothing. Not darkness, because darkness implies the existence of light. Not silence, as silence suggests an ear that hears nothing. There was simply the absence of everything. No sky, no earth, no time, no form. That is the chaos the ancient Greeks referred to. Not the disorder we think of today, but a vast, yawning void, an infinite gap filled with pure potential. And then something stirred. From that primordial void, the first beings came into existence. Not born, not created, but simply emerging, as if the universe itself was waking up to its own essence. The first of these beings was Gaia, the earth. Not a goddess ruling from above, but the earth itself, conscious and alive, feeling the weight of rivers and the movement of stones as her own body. Alongside Gaia came Tartarus, the deep, black abyss beneath the world, so far beneath the surface that an anvil dropped from the sky would fall for 9 days before reaching the earth. And if you dropped it again, it would fall for another 9 days before it reached the bottom of Tartarus. It is a place of such absolute, crushing depth that it became the ultimate prison, where things were sent not just to be defeated, but utterly contained. And then came Eros. Not the chubby winged child with a bow and arrow. That came much later in later myths. This Eros was primal, the force of desire, attraction, and connection. He was the invisible pull that draws things together. Ancient thinkers regarded him as the most beautiful of the immortals, not due to appearance, but because of his power to make things yearn for one another. Without desire, nothing reaches for anything else. The universe remains silent and still. These three, Gaia, Tartarus, and Eros, were not born from a divine parent. They simply were. They were the universe's first answers to its own existence. But it was Gaia who truly set the story in motion. Alone, without a partner, Gaia brought forth Ouranos, the sky. She spread him above her like a canopy, a companion, and produced the mountains rising from her own body like thoughts becoming form, and Pontus, deep and restless sea. Then she gazed upward at the sky she had created and fell in love with him. Gaia and Ouranos became the first great couple of Greek mythology, and together they had 12 powerful children, the Titans. Among them were Cronus, who would eventually rule in his father's place, Rhea, who would become the mother of the Olympians, Hyperion, Lord of Light, Themis, spirit of law and order, and Mnemosyne, the embodiment of memory. Without her, nothing could ever be learned or remembered and passed on. But they didn't stop there. They had children of monstrous size and terrifying strength, the Hecatoncheires, each possessing 50 heads and 100 hands, and the Cyclopes, each with a single eye burning in the center of their forehead, who would later forge Zeus's thunderbolts. This should have heralded a golden beginning, with the universe filling itself with life and possibility. Yet, Ouranos looked at his children and felt something unexpected: fear. These children were immense, wild, barely containable. They were expressions of raw, primordial power. Ouranos could not tolerate sharing the world with forces he had not controlled. So he did something unforgivable. He pushed them back. Every time Gaia labored to bring a child into the light, Ouranos seized them and stuffed them back into the earth, back into Gaia's own body. He buried them alive. He denied them the right to even exist. Gaia suffered. Her body was bloated with the weight of her own imprisoned sons. And in that agony, she didn't just weep. She planned. Deep within her own veins, she fashioned a weapon. A great sickle made of gray flint. A curved, jagged, lethal blade. She went to her hidden unborn children and asked the question,
"Who will help me take revenge?"
The darkness was silent. Even the giants trembled. No one moved. Then the youngest titan, Cronus, spoke from the shadows.
"I will do it,"
he said.
"I have no love for him."
Gaia handed him the blade. That night, when Ouranos descended from the heights to lay with Gaia in the dark, Cronus was waiting. He didn't hesitate. He struck with the sickle, castrating his father in one violent motion, and hurled the severed parts into the churning sea. Where that divine blood hit the soil, the Erinyes, the Furies, were born. Ancient, shrieking spirits of vengeance who hunt murderers and oath-breakers to the ends of the earth. From that same blood rose the giants and the ash tree nymphs. But where the severed flesh hit the ocean, something even more miraculous happened. The water began to hiss and foam. From that white, bubbling gore rose Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. She wasn't born from a womb or an act of tenderness. She was born from a wound. She stepped onto the shores of Cyprus as a fully formed woman, and as she walked, the world rearranged itself. Flowers bloomed where her feet touched the sand. And Eros, that ancient primal force of desire, flew straight to her side. Ouranos, broken and defeated, retreated into the highest heights. He became the distant sky we see today, still there, still watching, but no longer the dominant force he once was. Cronus was now king. The Titans were finally free. And for a brief moment, there was peace. The Greeks called this the Golden Age, a time when the world was new, untouched, and human beings lived among the gods without fear or separation. But before Ouranos vanished into the stars, he spat out a curse, a prophecy. He told Cronus,
"You did this to me, and one day, one of your own children will do the exact same to you."
He told him that the cycle would never end, that power taken by the blade always ends under the blade. Cronus heard him, and for the first time in his life, the king of the Titans felt a chill of absolute terror. Before we move on to the age of the Olympians, we need to stop and look at what this means. The Greeks weren't naive. They didn't tell these stories because they thought the universe was a kind or orderly place. They told them because they recognized a hard truth, that creation and violence are often the same thing, that power is always terrified of what it produces, that the things we try to suppress, the children we hide, the truths we bury, always have a way of clawing their way back to the surface. Ouranos feared his children. and his fear created the very monster that destroyed him. Cronus heard the prophecy of his downfall and spent his entire reign trying to outrun it, an obsession that would eventually lead to the birth of Zeus and the end of the Titans. In the Greek world, the universe isn't governed by a plan. It's governed by cause and effect, by action and consequence, by the very human tendency to fear what we cannot control and to make things 1,000 times worse by trying to control them anyway. The gods are magnificent. They are powerful, but they are prisoners of their own nature, and that is exactly why they are worth knowing. In the next episode, we'll follow Cronus into his reign and watch as his paranoia turns into a hunger that will change the universe forever. We'll see how his fear became the seed of everything and everyone that came after.
The past holds infinite secrets. Please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and activate notifications to join us on every new journey between myth and history.